Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Ever wondered what you're really made of when life pushes you to the edge? Why do some people thrive during chaos while others fall apart? And what if the storms in your life weren't setbacks, but construction zones for your future? Life has a way of testing us. Some seasons come gently, like soft rains that nourish and refresh. Others arrive like fierce hurricanes, shaking everything we've built. But it's in those turbulent seasons, the ones that feel the most overwhelming, that you truly discover what you're made of. It's in those moments that your life philosophy isn't just something you believe, it's something you prove, refined through the fire of real adversity. Let me share something that shifted my perspective forever. Your life is like a building under construction, and the difficulty you're facing right now, it's not a mistake. It's part of the process. You wouldn't walk past a half-built skyscraper and say, "What a disaster." You'd say, "It's not finished yet." And neither are you. The obstacles you're dealing with today are actively shaping the person you'll become tomorrow. When I was a young man, I had a mentor who forever changed the trajectory of my life. One day, he asked me a simple question that I've carried with me ever since. He said, "Jim, do you want your life to get better?" I answered, "Of course." He looked me in the eye and said something I'll never forget. "Then you have to get better." That moment planted the first principle I want to share with you about how to stay positive in tough times. Focus on personal growth, not your circumstances. When you're actively growing, developing your skills, expanding your mindset, improving your character, you create a deep sense of inner optimism. And that kind of optimism isn't fragile. It doesn't depend on good news or lucky breaks. It's something adversity can't take away. Most people, though, put all their energy into wishing for better circumstances. They say, "If only I had more money. If only my health were better. If only I had different parents or lived in a better neighborhood." But that mindset keeps them stuck. Successful people think differently. They know that circumstances are temporary, but who you become is lasting. Your circumstances don't define your future. Your personal development does. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" shift the question. Ask, "What is this happening for? What lesson is hidden in this challenge? How can I grow from it? How can I use this experience to rise stronger than I was before?" Over time, I've come to believe something powerful. Life will pay whatever price you ask of it. If you ask for the minimum, life will give you just that. Minimum effort, minimum reward. If you settle for small, life will keep you small. But if you ask boldly, if you aim for prosperity, commit to excellence, and demand growth from yourself, even when the odds are against you, life eventually rises to meet that demand. Now, let me share with you another crucial principle for staying positive, especially when life feels overwhelming. Guard your mind like a precious garden. Think of your mind as fertile soil. What you allow to take root will shape your beliefs, your emotions, and ultimately, your future. And just like a garden, if you don't plant intentionally, weeds will grow by default. Every single day, most people are flooded with negative input without even realizing it. The news, gossip, social media filled with outrage, fear, and comparison. Conversations with pessimistic people. It's a non-stop barrage, and it shapes your mindset whether you notice it or not. If you don't make the choice to filter what goes into your mind, the world will make that choice for you. And let me tell you, the world is not committed to your positivity. Years ago, I made a decision that changed everything. I chose to feed my mind with positive, uplifting, and empowering content. I began reading meaningful books, listening to educational audio, and surrounding myself with successful people who spoke with vision, not fear. That single choice reshaped my entire mental environment, and in turn, it reshaped my life. There's a powerful quote that captures this idea perfectly. You'll be the same person 5 years from now as you are today, except for the books you read and the people you meet. Isn't that powerful? Your mind is shaped, molded by what you consistently feed it. So here's my sincere suggestion. Start a deliberate, daily program of feeding your mind with positive, growth-oriented input. Read at least 30 minutes every day. Pick up books that challenge your thinking and uplift your spirit. When you're in the car, Choose educational audio instead of letting the news fill your head with anxiety and noise. And most importantly, surround yourself with people who lift you up, people who challenge you to grow, not drag you into gossip, doubt, or fear. If you commit to doing this for 90 days, just 90 days, you'll be stunned by the transformation. Your thought patterns will shift. Your reflex response to stress or setbacks will change from "why me" to "try me." From "I can't handle this" to "let's see what I can learn from this." That's the power of protecting and cultivating your mind. That's what happens when you become intentional about what you allow into your mental garden. Let me tell you a story that brings this principle to life. A friend of mine went through an incredibly dark season during the recession of the early 1980s. He lost his business. His home was gone. His marriage collapsed. It was one of those moments where life hits you from every angle, a perfect storm of loss. And storms like that, they either break you or they build something new. I went to visit him, expecting to find a man who was shattered. Instead, I found him in a small apartment, seated at his kitchen table. Around him were stacks of books. He looked up at me with a calm but determined expression and said, "Jim, I've decided that while I can't control the economy, I can control what I learn. I'm going to use this time to become more valuable than I've ever been before." 2 years later, that same man had rebuilt a business twice the size of the one he lost. When I asked him how he did it, his answer was simple but profound. "The key," he said, "was deciding that my difficulties were not the end of my story. They were simply a plot twist in a greater narrative." That's what I want you to understand. Whatever you're going through right now, whatever challenge, loss, or hardship, it isn't your conclusion. It's a turning point, a chapter, not a final page. Now let me share another principle that's been absolutely invaluable in my own life. Develop the habit of gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote to negativity. You can't be deeply grateful and deeply negative at the same time. Psychologically, it's impossible. One emotion cancels out the other. But here's the thing. Most people don't realize just how powerful that is. Gratitude, you see, is a discipline before it ever becomes a feeling. You don't wait until life is perfect to be grateful. You practice gratitude precisely when things aren't. It's a conscious choice, a habit of the heart, made daily regardless of your circumstances. Years ago, I began keeping a gratitude journal. Every morning, without fail, I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. Some days, especially when life feels heavy or uncertain, I start with the basics. I'm grateful I can see. I'm grateful I can walk. I'm grateful for clean water. Simple? Yes, but powerful. On better days, I might write down more expansive blessings. A breakthrough in my work, a meaningful conversation, or a moment of peace. But what matters most is the consistency. Because the discipline of seeking out things to be grateful for trains your mind to look for the good, even when the good feels buried under the weight of hardship. Here's something most people don't realize. Your brain has a built-in filtering system called the reticular activating system. It decides what information gets your attention and what gets ignored. The secret? It lets in more of whatever you consistently focus on. So when you make gratitude a daily habit, you begin to reprogram your mind to see more of what's working, more of what's beautiful, more of what's possible. Suddenly, even in difficult seasons, life starts to feel fuller, richer, more abundant. Over the years, I've sat across from many people walking through incredibly difficult chapters: grief, loss, financial ruin, personal setbacks. And when I ask, "Tell me one good thing in your life right now," there's often a long pause. But with a little encouragement, they begin to find something. A kind friend, a warm meal, a sunrise. And from there, a shift begins. A crack of light in what felt like total darkness. Because here's the truth. Most people miss the extraordinary hiding in their ordinary. They're so focused on what's broken that they overlook what's still beautiful. They're so obsessed with what's missing that they miss what they have. Don't let that be your story. I believe there's a kind of quiet magic in gratitude, a power that transforms not the situation itself, but the way you see it. And sometimes that change in perspective is all you need to begin turning things around. That's what happens when you consciously choose gratitude, even in your hardest seasons. It lifts the veil of discouragement and allows you to see options you might have missed. It softens your heart when pain tries to harden it. And more than that, it keeps you connected to hope, even when despair seems to be banging on the front door of your mind. Another vital principle for staying positive, one that too many people overlook, is understanding the incredible power of your words. What you say matters, and not just to those around you, but to yourself. Your words quietly shape your mindset, your expectations, and ultimately, your reality, often far more than you realize. Over the years, I've noticed something consistent. People who live with a constant cloud of negativity often have one thing in common: negative speech patterns. They say things like, "With my luck, this won't work out," or "I knew this would happen to me," or "Nothing ever goes my way." And sadly, those repeated phrases become self-fulfilling prophecies. The more they say them, the more they believe them. And the more they believe them, the more their lives conform to that narrative. On the flip side, successful people, those who remain optimistic even in tough seasons, are incredibly intentional with the words they speak. You'll hear them say things like, "I'll figure this out," or "This is tough, but not impossible," or "I'm growing through this experience." Their language doesn't deny reality. It reshapes how they approach it. Their words become a framework for resilience, creativity, and breakthrough. Your words are like seeds. Whatever you plant will eventually grow. So if you keep planting phrases filled with fear, doubt, or defeat, don't be surprised when your life begins to reflect those very things. But when you plant words filled with hope, determination, and the belief that things can get better, something powerful happens. Even in the rocky soil of adversity, those words take root and begin to shift your internal world. That's why I encourage people to take it a step further. Don't just think positive, speak positive. Write down affirming declarations and say them out loud every single day. I'm not talking about wishful thinking or pretending that life is perfect. I'm talking about bold, empowering truths, statements that remind you of who you are and what you're capable of becoming. Things like, "I am resourceful and creative. I find solutions where others see problems. I grow stronger with every challenge I face." When you speak words like these, you're not ignoring the reality of your situation. You're choosing to speak into your potential, not your problems. It reshapes your internal dialogue, giving you a new lens through which to see the world. Over the years, I've had the privilege of meeting many successful individuals, entrepreneurs, leaders, innovators, and one thing stands out. Every single one of them encountered serious setbacks along the way. But here's what set them apart. Their words never surrendered to the adversity. They refused to let their language be defeated by their circumstances. They talked about problems not as permanent barriers, but as temporary detours. They saw failure not as a definition of self, but as education in motion. I remember one conversation vividly. A woman who had just been let go during a corporate downsizing. I asked how she was doing. With a calm, confident smile, she said, "I don't say I was fired or laid off. I say I was released to pursue my next opportunity." Isn't that a powerful reframe? That's what happens when you choose your words with care and intention. They shape your mindset, and in turn, your future. Now let's turn to another principle that plays a huge role in how we stay positive through life storms: the power of association. Who you spend your time with matters more than you may think. I often tell people this simple truth. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Their beliefs, their energy, their habits, even their emotional tone. These things seep into your life, sometimes without you even noticing. And this isn't just motivational advice. It's backed by science. Social psychologists have consistently found that your environment, especially the people around you, profoundly shapes your behavior and emotional resilience. When life gets difficult, and it always does, this influence becomes even more critical. You see, some people, without meaning to, will pull you down into a spiral of fear, doubt, or complaining. Others, even in tough times, will challenge you to rise, to think bigger, to stay grounded in hope. So the question is, who's in your inner circle? That's why I often recommend doing what I call an association audit. Sit down and list out the 5 people you interact with most frequently. Then ask yourself a few honest questions. After spending time with this person, do I feel more encouraged or more depleted? Do I walk away more hopeful or more burdened? Am I more motivated to take action or more tempted to give up? those answers will speak volumes. Now, to be clear, this isn't about cutting off people who are going through hard times. That's not the goal. Life is hard for everyone at some point. But the key question is, how do they respond to those difficulties? Do they try to rise above, or do they drag others down with them? Do they face their difficulties with a productive mindset or a destructive one? Are they focused on finding solutions, or do they simply cycle through the same complaints day after day? I made it a personal priority to surround myself with mentors and friends who have walked through adversity, not just endured it, but been shaped and strengthened by it. There's something transformative about being in the presence of someone who's been through the fire and come out more focused, more grounded, and more determined. Their perspective is forged by experience. One of my mentors once told me something I've never forgotten. "Jim, if you want to soar with eagles, you can't scratch with turkeys." That phrase has echoed in my mind ever since. It's a reminder that your associations should reflect your aspirations. Who you spend time with is a direct reflection of where you're headed. And it's not just the people around you physically. I believe in expanding your associations through the content you consume. Books, audio programs, online courses. When you read the autobiography of someone who's triumphed over overwhelming odds, you're connecting with their mindset. When you listen to the wisdom of those who've built something meaningful, you're widening your mental circle of influence. Their stories become part of your internal dialogue. Their resilience begins to shape your own. Let me now share another principle that has proven to be absolutely essential, especially in hard times: the discipline of goal setting. Most people tend to abandon their goals the moment life throws them off course. But ironically, that's when you need goals the most. When a road ahead feels uncertain, your goals become your compass. They provide direction in a time of confusion. They offer motivation when external circumstances feel demoralizing. And perhaps most importantly, they give you a sense of control when everything around you feels chaotic. I always suggest setting both long-term and short-term goals. Your long-term goals are like a North Star. They guide your course, even when the terrain becomes rough and unpredictable. Short-term goals, on the other hand, act as stepping stones. They give you small victories to celebrate, which builds momentum and restores confidence. And remember, during the most difficult seasons of life, you may need to adjust your speed, but not your direction. Maybe you're not able to sprint forward like before. That's okay. Maybe you're not even walking, you're crawling. But as long as you're still moving, you haven't given up. The pace may change, but the destination remains. The key is consistent, deliberate movement, one step at a time, no matter how small. Movement, even the smallest steps, toward what truly matters to you, is what keeps you grounded during chaos. I recall a particular season in my life when everything felt like it was unraveling. My business was faltering, my health was under serious strain, and emotionally, I felt completely buried under the weight of it all. It was one of those moments where it seemed easier to quit than to keep going. During that time, I made a conscious decision to simplify. I didn't try to fix everything at once or chase after big wins. Instead, I broke things down and focused on achieving just 3 small victories each day. Nothing grand, just 3 simple, meaningful actions that nudged me forward. Some days, it was as basic as returning a few critical phone calls or reading a chapter from a book that fed my mindset and strengthened my perspective. But those small, consistent daily wins, they kept me anchored. They reminded me that progress, no matter how minor, is still progress. That's the quiet strength of goal setting during hard times. It helps shift your gaze from problems to purpose. It keeps you focused on the future rather than trapped in the present. It reinforces the truth that your current circumstances are just a chapter, not the conclusion of your story. Now, I want to share with you another powerful principle that's transformed my life: the philosophy of adding value to others. You see, when hardship strikes, it's natural to turn inward. Our own problems dominate our thoughts, and everything outside of our struggles starts to fade into the background. But here's something I've learned through experience. One of the most uplifting ways to stay positive in difficult seasons is to shift your attention outward. Ask yourself, even in the middle of this storm, how can I help someone else? What value can I bring despite what I'm facing? There's a kind of quiet magic that begins to unfold when you choose to serve. When you decide to contribute, even in small ways, your mindset transforms. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start acting like a contributor. You stop asking what you're missing and start focusing on what you can give. That shift from helpless to helpful is often the turning point. I've witnessed people completely change their emotional state just by making this one mental adjustment. Even during their darkest hours, they found strength and clarity simply by choosing to add value to others. I remember a woman who had experienced the unimaginable. She lost her child. But instead of retreating into isolation, she channeled her pain into purpose and started a support group for other grieving parents. Then there was a man who, after losing his job, didn't just sit idle in frustration. He chose to volunteer his time, helping others navigate career transitions. And a family, struggling under the weight of financial stress, began offering small but meaningful help to neighbors who were also in need. In all of these stories, giving back didn't erase their pain. It didn't magically make the difficulties disappear. But what it did do was transform their experience of those challenges. It brought meaning to their suffering. It shifted their focus and gave them a renewed sense of purpose, something larger than their immediate problems. And that shift made all the difference. So, here's a challenge I offer to you. Even in the midst of your current struggles, ask yourself, how can I bring value to someone else today? Maybe it's a few kind words to a friend who's hurting. Maybe you share your knowledge, offer practical support, or simply listen with compassion. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can ripple out in powerful ways. This principle isn't just good for your mindset, it shapes your future. Life has a mysterious but consistent way of rewarding those who choose contribution over complaint. When your focus is on giving rather than getting, opportunities seem to find you. Doors begin to open. Resources appear. It may not happen overnight, but over time, the results speak for themselves. I genuinely believe that income follows service. Wealth, both in finances and fulfillment, flows to those who dedicate themselves to delivering real value. Prosperity gravitates toward people who lead with generosity rather than need. So, when life feels heavy, resist the urge to pull back. Instead of shrinking into your own struggles, stretch outward. Don't isolate, connect. Don't just think about your own needs. Look around and ask, who can I help today? This practice doesn't just lift others. It lifts you too. It disrupts the spiral of negativity. It softens the edges of despair. It replaces helplessness with empowerment. Now, let me introduce another foundational principle that's made a tremendous difference in my life. The discipline of physical well-being. You see, most people underestimate just how deeply their physical condition affects their emotional and mental resilience. And ironically, when life gets rough, the first habits we tend to abandon are the ones that support our health the most. Habits like proper sleep, balanced nutrition, regular physical activity, and adequate hydration may seem like minor details, especially when you're facing major life struggles. But here's the truth. These simple practices are the pillars that support your ability to stay strong, focused, and positive through adversity. I've come to understand that physical well-being isn't separate from emotional or mental resilience. It's the very foundation of it. Think about it. When your body is exhausted, even the smallest obstacles can feel like towering walls. But when you're physically energized and well-rested, those same challenges often appear more manageable, even solvable. That's why I encourage you to build simple, consistent routines that become non-negotiable, especially during difficult seasons of life. Maybe it's starting your morning with a brisk walk to clear your mind and energize your body, or prioritizing a healthy breakfast that fuels your day. Perhaps it's committing to 8 hours of restful sleep or staying hydrated throughout your day. These might sound basic, even obvious, but they are essential. When you neglect the fundamentals, your capacity to think clearly, remain calm, and make sound decisions is compromised. I remember a time when I was working relentless hours trying to save a struggling business. I was running on empty, skipping meals, surviving on caffeine, and getting barely any sleep. My body was wearing down fast. One day, my mentor pulled me aside and said something that struck me deeply. Jim, you can't solve complex problems with a depleted mind and body. Your physical discipline is just as important as your business discipline. He was absolutely right. As soon as I recommitted to taking care of my health, eating consistently, sleeping properly, and getting some form of movement each day. Everything started to shift. My creative thinking returned. My patience grew. My judgment improved. The problems didn't magically go away, but my ability to deal with them became far stronger. So don't overlook the basics. Your body is the vessel that carries you through every battle you face. Treat it like an ally. Fuel it well, rest it regularly, and keep it strong. Because when your body is at its best, your mind and spirit follow. Now, let me introduce a principle that often gets forgotten, but has tremendous power: the practice of strategic solitude. In today's world of endless connectivity and constant noise, many people go through life constantly surrounded by noise. Notifications, conversations, demands, but they never truly experience the peace, clarity, and insight that come from intentional solitude. I've found that deliberately setting aside time to be alone isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. Strategic solitude has been one of the most essential tools in staying grounded, especially during life's most difficult seasons. This kind of solitude isn't about isolating yourself from the world or running away from problems. It's not escapism. It's about carving out sacred space to think, reflect, process, and reconnect with what truly matters. It's in these quiet moments that you regain your perspective and realign with your values and vision. In my own life, I've made this a daily discipline. Each morning, before the demands of the world rush in, I spend 1 quiet hour alone. Then, on the weekends, I take a longer block of time for deeper reflection. During these periods, I review what's working and what's not. I ask myself tough questions. I reconnect with my core purpose. I even allow myself to feel the emotions I've pushed aside during the week's chaos. This practice has protected me from making impulsive, emotion-driven decisions when times were tough. It has helped me separate what truly needs my attention from what can wait or even resolve itself. Most importantly, it's created a mental and emotional buffer that allows me to respond with clarity and calm rather than reacting out of stress or fear. If you've never practiced intentional solitude, I encourage you to start small. Maybe it's a morning walk without your phone, or a weekly hour in a peaceful corner of your home or nature. Perhaps it's simply sitting quietly before the household wakes up. The specific method doesn't matter nearly as much as the consistency. This quiet time becomes a mirror for your soul, a place where wisdom can rise above the noise. In fact, many of the people I've coached through serious life struggles often tell me their biggest moments of clarity, their aha moments, didn't come during chaos or conversation, but in silence. In the stillness, they heard their own inner voice, connected with their intuition, and felt a deeper guidance emerge. That's the power of solitude. Now let me share another principle that has been a cornerstone in my life, especially in tough times: the importance of mastering the fundamentals. You see, when life becomes overwhelming, our instinct is often to search for complicated fixes or chase radical solutions. But in reality, the greatest breakthroughs often come not from adding complexity, but from returning to the basics. Take a moment to think about it. In business, the fundamentals might be things like delivering exceptional customer service, offering high-quality products, and managing your finances with precision and care. In relationships, the fundamentals might look like open, honest communication, showing up consistently, and expressing sincere appreciation. And when it comes to personal development, they often include lifelong learning, disciplined daily habits, and keeping your priorities clearly defined. No matter the challenges you're currently navigating, there are always foundational practices that create a sense of structure and progress. These are the steady stones that keep your path walkable when the road gets rough. Re-identifying and recommitting to these fundamentals, especially during difficult seasons, can be incredibly transformative. I recall working closely with an entrepreneur whose company was on the brink of collapse. He was stressed, constantly putting out fires, and desperately trying to innovate his way out of trouble. But as we peeled back the layers of his situation, something became crystal clear. He had slowly drifted away from the very fundamentals that had built his business in the first place. He was chasing new opportunities, but in the process, he neglected his loyal customer base. He cut corners on quality to reduce costs, forgetting that excellence was his brand's promise. He'd let go of the small, personal touches that once made his company stand out. Once he made the courageous decision to return to these fundamentals. No shortcuts, no gimmicks, something powerful happened. His business stabilized, then it started to grow. Eventually, it surpassed its previous best performance. What saved him wasn't some cutting-edge strategy. It wasn't a flashy marketing campaign or a lucky break. It was simply returning to the time-tested principles that had already proven their worth. And that same truth applies to your personal life too. When adversity strikes, don't just look outward for solutions. Pause and look inward. Ask yourself, what fundamentals have kept me grounded in the past? Have I strayed from them? What simple but powerful practices do I need to revisit? Sometimes the breakthrough you need doesn't come from something new, but from something true, something you already know, but may have overlooked in the noise and pressure of life. Now, let me introduce another principle that has profoundly impacted my journey, the practice of reframing. This is the intentional act of shifting how you interpret a situation. It's the art of seeing your circumstances from a different, more empowering angle, not by ignoring reality, but by changing how you interpret it. Reframing gives you the power to shift your mindset from victim to victor. Most negative emotions aren't caused by the situation itself, but by the story we tell ourselves about it. Change the story, and you change the emotion. Think about it this way. Losing a job can feel like a devastating blow. But what if, instead, you saw it as the freedom to pursue something that better fits your values and purpose? An ended relationship might be interpreted as a failure, but it could also be viewed as a vital experience that taught you about your own needs, boundaries, and growth. A health crisis might initially seem like a cruel twist of fate, yet it could also be the wake-up call that leads you to finally prioritize your well-being. The facts don't change when you reframe, but the way you relate to those facts changes everything. That shift in perspective is what determines whether your current hardships drain you or develop you into a stronger, wiser version of yourself. I recall working with a business owner who had just lost a major contract. It accounted for nearly a third of his company's income, and understandably, he was in shock, overwhelmed by feelings of failure and fear for the future. When I gently asked him to try reframing the situation, he resisted at first. "How can I see this any other way?" he asked. But as we explored the situation together, something began to shift. He realized that relying so heavily on one client had always been risky. Maybe now was the perfect moment to diversify his income streams. Perhaps losing that contract was forcing him out of a comfort zone he didn't even know he was trapped in. Maybe it was revealing blind spots in his business model that needed attention. Over time, his mindset shifted. What started as despair turned into determination. Within 6 months, not only had he replaced the lost revenue, but he had also built a healthier, more resilient business. Less dependent on any single client and better positioned for long-term growth. Reframing doesn't mean pretending things are fine when they're not. It's not naive optimism or sugarcoating. It's the conscious choice to find empowering meaning in adversity. Because in the end, your perspective shapes your potential. Now, let's explore one more principle that ties everything together. This kind of thinking isn't about denying reality or clinging to naive optimism. It's about choosing to interpret your circumstances through a more empowering lens, one that lifts you rather than limits you. Often, the facts of our situation remain the same, but how we frame those facts determines whether they become stepping stones or stumbling blocks. One powerful way to begin shifting your mindset is by asking better, deeper questions. For example, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" try asking, "What good might come from this that I haven't yet recognized?" Or, if someone I love are going through this, what would I say to encourage them? These kinds of questions gently steer your mind toward growth and insight rather than despair. You might ask, "How is this challenge shaping me into someone stronger?" Or, "Could this deeder actually be redirecting me to something more meaningful?" And perhaps most importantly, what inner strength or new skill am I building right now that I'll be grateful for in the future? These questions won't change your circumstances, but they absolutely can transform your experience of them and guide your response with clarity and purpose. Now, let me shift gears and share another principle that has made a significant impact in my life. the power of financial discipline, especially during tough times. It's no secret that many of life's difficulties, whether personal, professional, or relational, are either caused by or worsened by financial stress. Developing wise money habits won't make all your problems disappear, but can give you stability and peace when things feel uncertain. I remember what a mentor once told me: "Jim, until you take control of your money, you'll never fully take control of your life." That statement struck a chord with me. It reframed how I saw money, not just as currency, but as a tool for freedom, for choice, for dignity. Financial discipline, I realized, wasn't about restriction. It was about empowerment. So here's my suggestion. Adopt a few core financial practices that work in any season of life. Begin by saving a portion of every dollar you earn. I personally recommend at least 10%. Make it non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth. Lie below your means, spend less than you make, and avoid lifestyle creep. Don't fall into the trap of financing a lifestyle that looks impressive but leaves you feeling anxious. Steer clear of debt unless it's helping you build value, not just consuming it. And make it a habit to invest consistently in things that grow in value over time, whether it's your education, your retirement fund, or a well-managed asset. These disciplines create a financial cushion that softens life's inevitable blows. When you have savings, an unexpected bill becomes an inconvenience, not a crisis. That peace of mind is priceless. When you have a financial buffer, an unexpected bill doesn't turn into a full-blown crisis. It becomes a manageable inconvenience. And when you're not stretched too thin, even a temporary drop in income doesn't shake your foundation. It simply means making a few thoughtful adjustments instead of scrambling in panic. I've worked with many individuals who face financial difficulties, and one thing I've consistently noticed is this: the amount of stress they felt was rarely tied directly to the size of the problem. Rather, it stemmed from the gap between the problem itself and how well they were prepared to handle it. Those who had practiced even modest financial discipline, saving a little, budgeting wisely, avoiding unnecessary debt, navigated those storms with far more resilience and confidence than those who hadn't. So if you're currently in a tight financial spot, don't despair. Just begin where you are. Even the smallest step in the right direction can create a ripple of calm in a chaotic situation. Maybe you can't save 10% of your income yet, but can you start with 1%? Maybe you can cancel one subscription, cut back on one luxury, or map out a simple budget for the week ahead. These aren't just money moves. They're acts of reclaiming your power. It's important to remember, financial freedom doesn't require a fortune. It requires foresight, consistency, and wisdom. And the good news? That wisdom isn't reserved for the wealthy. It's available to everyone, no matter your income, your background, or your current circumstances. Now, let me introduce another powerful practice that has helped me stay positive even during the most demanding seasons: the habit of capturing and celebrating progress. You see, when times get hard, our focus naturally shifts to everything that's still undone. We obsess over the long road ahead, the mountains still left to climb. But that mindset only fuels frustration and fatigue. I've learned that it's absolutely essential to pause and recognize how far you've already come. Even the smallest forward steps deserve acknowledgement. This isn't just about positive thinking, it's about building real momentum. When you track your growth, your efforts, your wins, no matter how minor, you remind yourself that progress is happening. And that alone can lift your spirit. I recommend starting a progress journal. At the end of each day or week, jot down what you've improved, what you've learned, and what you've overcome. Maybe it's a task completed, a habit maintained, or a challenge faced with more grace than before. Review these entries regularly, especially on tough days. They serve as proof that you're not stuck. You're moving, you're growing. This practice also helps counteract something we all deal with: our brain's natural negativity bias. Left unchecked, our mind zooms in on what's wrong and overlooks what's right. But when you train it to look for progress, it starts to find more of it. And that shift can change everything. Our brains are wired to give more emotional weight to negative events than to positive ones. That's just how the human mind works. I once worked with a woman who had suffered a serious injury that left her temporarily unable to walk. Her road to recovery was long, slow, and painful. Improvement came not in leaps, but in tiny, almost imperceptible steps. measured in millimeters, not miles. Each day brought fresh frustration. Discouragement seemed to hover constantly in the air around her. To help shift her focus, I encouraged her to start a simple daily habit. Write down every bit of progress, no matter how small. Did she feel slightly less pain than the day before? Did she manage one extra stretch or movement? Did she smile once during therapy or share a laugh with a nurse? These were all worth noting. At first, she thought the idea was silly. How could writing things down make any real difference? But as the days passed and her journal filled with tiny victories, something incredible began to happen. Her perspective transformed. One afternoon, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Jim, I spent so much energy mourning that I couldn't run. I didn't even notice the joy of learning how to stand again." This journal, it's changed everything. I now realize I'm getting better every single day, just not as fast as I wanted. That is the quiet power of capturing progress. It doesn't erase your challenges, but it transforms the way you relate to them. It replaces the disheartening thought of, "I'm not there yet," with a far more empowering truth. "I'm on my way." Closely linked to this habit is what I call the practice of strategic celebration. Most people believe celebration should be reserved for the final goal, the big win, the finish line. But wise individuals understand that momentum and motivation come from honoring milestones along the way. These celebrations don't need to be grand or expensive. It could be as simple as preparing a favorite meal, taking a walk in nature, rewarding yourself with a peaceful hour of solitude, or calling someone who will cheer you on. The point isn't the form of the celebration, it's the acknowledgement. You're saying to yourself, progress is happening, and it matters. Because it does. The major breakthroughs in life are built upon the smaller, often unseen, acts of discipline and resilience. Showing up on the hard days. Choosing courage when it's easier to retreat. Being consistent when no one's watching. Celebrate even when you don't feel like it. Celebrate the moment you chose growth, even though comfort was calling your name. Celebrate the quiet victory of holding firm to your principles when it would have been so much easier to compromise. These small acknowledgments aren't trivial. They're essential fuel for the journey ahead, especially when the road gets tough. Now, let me share one final principle with you. One that, in my experience, may be the most powerful of them all. The power of vision. Vision is more than wishful thinking. It's your ability to see beyond the struggles of today and into the possibilities of tomorrow. It's the capacity to hold a vivid image of the future you desire, even when your current situation seems to say it's impossible. I believe that the strength and clarity of your vision directly influences the quality of your life. Why? Because people with a clear, compelling vision don't lose themselves in their problems. They place those problems in the context of a much greater story. When coaching others, I often ask a few simple but revealing questions. What do you want your life to look like 3 years from now? Who do you want to become by then? What impact do you want to have on others? What skills do you hope to develop that could change everything? It's surprising how many people have never taken the time to truly answer these questions. They're so caught up in putting out fires each day that they've never sat down to define what their future could look like if they took the reins. But here's the truth. When you clarify your future, your present gains new meaning. Suddenly, today's struggles aren't the whole story. They're just one chapter. Obstacles become stepping stones. Delays become times of necessary preparation, not punishment or failure. When you have a vision that inspires you, you're far less likely to give up in the face of adversity. That's why I encourage everyone I work with to develop what I call a personal vision statement. This isn't just a checklist of goals. It's a vivid, emotional, written snapshot of the life you're working to create. It should engage both your logical mind and your heart. And most importantly, it should pull you forward, especially when life feels like it's pushing back. Spend time with that vision. Read it daily. Reflect on it. Visualize it until it becomes a source of energy and resilience. I worked with a young entrepreneur once whose first business collapsed. He lost everything, including the hard-earned investments of friends and family. He was crushed financially and emotionally. When I asked him about his vision for the future, he hesitated, then admitted he didn't have one. He was so overwhelmed by his current failure that he simply couldn't picture future success. His vision had been clouded by disappointment, and all he could see was what had gone wrong. So we began there by creating a vivid, detailed picture of the business and life he truly wanted to build. Slowly, as this vision took shape on paper and in his heart, something remarkable began to happen. His posture lifted, his energy returned, his creativity sparked again. The failure was still real. It hadn't magically disappeared, but it now had new meaning. It was no longer a full stop in his life story. It became a turning point, a hard but necessary chapter in a much bigger and more meaningful narrative. Within 2 years, he launched a new venture that not only succeeded, but eventually surpassed everything he had once hoped to achieve in his first business. When I asked him what had changed this time around, he simply said, "The first time, I was just trying to make money. The second time, I was chasing a vision. That vision gave me something worth fighting for. It pulled me through every obstacle." That is the true power of vision when you're going through tough seasons. It won't magically remove every obstacle in your path, but will give you a powerful reason to push forward. It won't eliminate pain, but it can transform pain into purpose. It won't shorten your journey, but it will make the journey meaningful and worth taking. Let me leave you with this thought. Life will challenge all of us at one time or another. That's not being negative. It's simply facing reality. The rain doesn't pick favorites. It falls on the just and the unjust alike. Good people will face problems. Even the most successful individuals encounter setbacks. But here's what matters most. While difficulty is universal, our response to it is deeply personal. Two people can face the same hardship, yet one is crushed by it, while the other grows through it. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. One chooses to quit, the other chooses to mature. The difference? It's not in how hard life hits. It's in the set of principles you live by and the mindset you choose to adopt in those defining moments. These principles I've shared with you, like focusing on growth over circumstances, guarding your thoughts, practicing daily gratitude, choosing your words with intention, surrounding yourself with uplifting people, setting goals even in dark seasons, giving to others despite your own struggles, caring for your physical body, carving out moments of solitude, returning to the fundamentals, reframing difficulties, building financial discipline, tracking and celebrating progress, and creating a clear, compelling vision. They aren't just inspirational theories. They are real, practical tools that have guided thousands of people through their lowest points and lifted them toward new heights. They've been tested by fire. I've seen them work in the lives of countless individuals, and I've lived them in my own. These principles are not reserved for the lucky few. They are available to anyone willing to commit, to grow, to persist. Never forget this. It's not the blowing of the wind, but the setting of your sails that determines your destination. You can't always predict the storms, but you can always prepare your response. You can't prevent hardship, but you can cultivate the strength and wisdom to meet it head on, with clarity, calm, and confidence. The difficulties you face today may feel heavy, even unfair, but they're doing something within you. They're shaping the very traits you'll need for the future you dream of. These struggles are not arbitrary. They are building blocks, part of your unique preparation. They are chapters in the greater story of your growth. Let these challenges teach you. Let them sharpen your strengths and expose areas where growth is needed. Let them help you face your fears, not with avoidance, but with courage and conviction. Let them stretch your limits so that you can expand your capacity and walk boldly into the life you were made for. Life is not happening to you. It's happening for you. Each moment, especially the most difficult ones, holds seeds of growth, insight, and transformation. Your task is not to hope for fewer problems. It's to grow stronger, wiser, and more capable. To develop the resilience, clarity, and determination needed to rise no matter what comes your way. So as we bring this message to a close, I want to leave you with one powerful challenge. Make a decision, not about avoiding difficulty, but about how you will face it. Will you allow yourself to be shaped by your circumstances, or will you choose to shape your future through them? Will you stay stuck in what you can't control, or will you shift your focus to what you can? Your choices, your attitude, your actions? Will your hardships diminish you or develop you? Because in the end, the quality of your life is never about whether or not you face problems. It's about what you decide to do with them. But in the end, it's not your problems that define you. It's your response to them. Right now, you have a powerful choice. You can choose to respond with a mindset of growth instead of slipping into complaints. You can face hardship with determination instead of giving in to despair. You can hold on to hope even when resignation seems easier. Decide to become the person who emerges stronger from adversity, not weaker. Someone who becomes more resourceful when tested, not more restricted. Someone who becomes more driven by challenges, not discouraged by them. Because this single decision, how you choose to respond to difficulty, will impact your future far more than any outside circumstance ever could. This is what separates a life filled with frustration from a life filled with fulfillment. It's what turns surviving into thriving and merely existing into truly living. Think about it. The same wind blows on all of us. We all face storms, but it's not the wind that determines your direction. It's how you set your sail. So today, set your sail toward growth. Aim it toward contribution. Chart a course toward new possibilities, no matter which way the wind is blowing. Let the storms become your training ground. Let the setbacks become your stepping stones. Thank you for joining me and giving your valuable time and attention. It's been a true honor to walk through these principles with you. I genuinely believe in your ability, not just to endure life's storms, but to use their force to launch yourself into the life you were meant to live. Because in the end, it's not just about how to stay positive when life gets tough. It's about rising beyond it. It's about becoming extraordinary precisely because life is tough. The very struggles that could break you are also the moments that can make you. If you meet them with wisdom, courage, and an unshakable resolve to grow, those challenges can become the foundation of your greatest strength. So I'll leave you with this. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. Choose growth. Choose purpose. And choose to live with intention. Wishing you health, happiness, and strength on your journey. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more wisdom to fuel your day.